Hello, and good evening, folks. Thank you so much for tuning back into my channel. Patrick Stewart. Tonight's going to be a special treat. I get to do a one-on-one interview with a comic book creator by the name of Trevor Fernandes-Lenkiewicz. And as you know, if you've been following my channel, at 41 years old, I am brand new to the world of comic books. Now, that's not to say that I'm brand new to Marvel and DC. I know all about those stories. I grew up with them. But everything I know about those stories did not come from comic books. It came from the internet. It came from movies. Basically, I want to talk to Trevor about his creation. It's over on Kickstarter. I'll put a link in the description below. So close to meeting the funding goal. I got to tell you, it is a phenomenal project. The first 3 issues are already out. They are available to purchase. I got to tell you, I'm not even going to call it a steal. It's a deal. And number 4 is soon to hit, and the quality, the art, the story is amazing. And of course, me being brand new to comics, the story is what pulled me in. The very first comic, I got to tell you at the front end, the very first comic that I've ever purchased on my own is Trevor's comic. I jumped in around issue number 2. The story pulled me in, and I'm just telling you, it's an amazing project, So I want to pick the brain of the creator here, Trevor Fernandes-Lankiewicz. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did a damn good job, my friend. I give you credit.
All right. Well, he is with us tonight, and I get to pick his brain. So say hi to everybody out there in YouTube land, brother.
Oh, hey everyone. Pat, thank you so much for having me on, man, and for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we've got a mutual friend by the name of Mark McKeever. And how do you know Mark?
So before I was writing comics, I was doing kind of really deep comics criticism and discussion-based content, and Mark found me through that and followed me before I even started creating comics. And obviously, when I decided that I wanted to get my skin into the game, the first people I went to were the people that were watching my YouTube videos. And Mark has been a huge supporter of mine ever since. He's a big reason as to why, it's been possible to get as far as we've come so far. So, yeah, great guy, very supportive, and a real staple in my community of readers.
Probably you've heard of the platform, my Patreon. When I was brave enough to dip my toe in that water, he was my first patron. So I've always found Mark to be a very supportive soul for creators. And that's actually how I found you is I think you were on issue 2, which would be that bad boy right there. And he said, hey, man, check it out, give it a chance. And we'll get it more into that. But one, I was shocked at the price because I've seen comics, like they're not cheap. And just full disclosure, when I saw the price, which was, I don't want to call it a steal, I'll call it a deal. I'm like, man, how good could this be if it's that affordable? I don't even want to say cheap, because when I got the comic, it was anything but cheap. I mean, the quality is amazing. And so he said, give it a chance. I gave it a chance, not even knowing what the story was about. And I'll tell you what drew me in is stories are what draw me in. I'm a veteran with PTSD, severe post-traumatic stress disorder, been in counseling for years. And one of the things about PTSD is it will leave you in this crisis of activity versus inactivity. When you have the memories or the flashbacks, whatever you want to call them, you have this very visceral response to act or not act. A lot of times with anger, a lot of times out of control. And this main character that you've created named Kent, I very much can identify with that. Now, of course, this is science fiction, but of course, you know, what draws us in is the stories. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It's the story. I mean, I know lightsabers aren't real, but the story drew me in, and that's what drew me into your comic.
Oh, that's incredible to hear. I mean, really, I think I used this quote on the preface to that second issue, actually, ironically enough. And it was something I don't know if Neil Gaiman took it off of anybody else, but I definitely took it off of Neil Gaiman. And it is that fiction is a lie that tells us true things. And for me, when it came down to creating the story, yes, I wanted it to be interesting and exciting and dramatic. But at its core, underneath it all, there's a very human story behind it. About things that real people go through. They're just accentuated in order to use entertainment as a way for people to access those stories. And that's really what this comic is at its core. It's a very human story about identity and memory and mental health and loss and reconciling all of those things together. And somebody might come in looking for a crazy like sci-fi noir conspiracy story, but they're going to walk out with something really personal, something that means a lot to me. And I think that that is, in my opinion, the greatest incentive to create art is to connect with people.
I consider myself very blessed and fortunate that my first foray into the comic universe, I come across a creator that wants to connect on that very real level with stories and touch people, because stories do. That's what makes movies amazing. They're telling messages. And I love what you said. Now say that again. You said that fiction is
a lie that tells us true things, and also, I have this really, some might call it corny philosophy, that stories are the connective tissue between all people. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you believe in. We all share stories and we share these concepts. You look throughout the diaspora of mythology and religion, and there are so many common threads between all of them, despite massive, massive geological differences and despite a ridiculous amount of distance in between them. And it all kind of tells you that, at the end of the day, we all come from the same place and we all feel the same things. We just interpret them differently based on where we come from. And so, for me, the story is told through, I think, a very American lens, particularly because of how varied our country is and because of all of the sort of social schism, that has always kind of been present in the country, but is made a lot more present now, because we have such a immediate access to information. But at the end of the day, this is a story about people, despite its despite that sort of sci-fi skin that it wears.
well in the sci-fi skin, that it definitely appeals to me. It's going to appeal to a lot of readers. But what kept me was the story, because I'll be frank, I'm very much a story snob. If I love a
Mm.
story, I'll keep reading it. If I don't like a story, I won't. And so I just, as a favor to a friend, Mark, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to jump in and check out issue 2, and I'm going to back order issue 1 just so I have some continuity of story. And then when I read them, I was like chomping at the bit, like, dude, where's your update? Where's issue 3 over here on Kickstarter? Like, you need to drop this.
Mm.
And I'm very excited about the tiers you've got on Kickstarter with issue 4, because you've got some amazing artists. Like, tell me, how did you find the artists for these comics?
It was a lot of searching. I founded the company in the middle of the pandemic and in the middle of the height of the pandemic. So it certainly wasn't easy. But it was a lot of filtering through people online. Fortunately, I come from that comics criticism background, but I always felt like the my strong suit at comics criticism was the analytical side of what I was doing. So I really brought that when it came to vetting out potential applicants. I probably went through over 2 dozen artists for the line work, and God, probably close to 40 people for the colorist, because I had a very specific idea of what we were looking for. Part of it was also me looking at patterns in the industry at hand. I had realized that there's a ridiculous body of talent in like Brazil and South America. And these guys are just so underappreciated. For those comic book fans out there, you have guys like Ivan Reis and Joe Prado and Robson Roca, who just passed away, unfortunately. Um, amongst and Bruno Redondo, who's just absolutely running through the comic book industry right now. And so I was like, well, let me look specifically in like South American circles. And I found my artist in Brazil, where a lot of that sort of heat was centered. It was certainly a process, and I've been lucky to have landed with my penciler inker Marcelo Salazar, and my colorist Marcio Freire. These guys are great, and both of them have almost 20 years in the industry each, which is incredible
Wow.
considering I'm 24. So Marcelo has been making comics almost as long as I've been alive, and even down to my letterer. Taylor Esposito has been in the industry for I think over 10 years now, and he is the industry gold standard for lettering. And so when it came down to making this project, I knew that there was a value in my sort of young, hungry artist mentality. And there was something new and fresh that I could bring to the table, but I also was frighteningly aware of my inexperience. So I wanted to surround myself with people who were experts in what they were doing. And I think we've certainly created something that is greater than the sum of its parts because of that.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, even outside the world of comics, I manage a team of about 10 people, and I always tell people the last thing you want is people that are just like you. It may make it easier at the end of the day, but it won't make it successful. Find people who are more experienced, less experienced, different viewpoints, different cultures, just a complete diversity of talent, and surround yourself with those people. And you can definitely, that speaks to you as the creator, that you've got these artists that have been doing this for as long as you've been alive, and they're willing to sign on to this project. That blows my mind. I didn't even know that.
Fortunately, they were really easy to talk to. I gave them an idea about what I wanted the story to be. I gave them samples of the script, in a sense, to prove a sense of competency, despite the fact that this was my first attempt. And I just really tried to drive home the passion and the dedication that I have to the medium and to the story. I did a lot of, as a reviewer, I did a lot of studying of the sort of language and the technicality of comics, because there's so much that goes into it that people don't talk about, and particularly because comics were considered such a juvenile space for artists to
Mm.
work in for so long. There really aren't a lot of like foundational texts for people to reference in terms of learning how to do it. So the stuff that I could find, I latched onto, and I did my best to apply that when it came to reading other stories and figuring out what's working, what's not working, and what I can use as a storyteller in my own toolbox.
Awesome, awesome. So 24 years old, creating some awesome stories, reaching a ton of people. So let's briefly go over, because I don't have all the tiers memorized. I do have a link in the description below. I'll even flash that up on the screen here, to the Kickstarter. It's very easy to find. I've got an app on my phone now that says Kickstarter, and I can keep track of the progress. I think as of right now, let's do a quick update. The update that I've got as of right now is, if I'm wrong, correct me, is the minimum goal to reach 6,500 on funding?
Yep.
All right. Well, as of right now, what I'm reading is 79 backers at 5,045, and this is so easy to get into because the entry level tier is what, $5.
If you just wanted issue 4, I mean, that'd be an awfully odd place to start, particularly giving of issue 3. But if you wanted to catch all the way up, and you didn't want to worry about anything taking up space, you can pick up all 4 digital copies in a bundle for $15, which
That's
is
just unheard of. That's
it's
unheard of.
nothing. Because it's for me. there are two components that go into it. One is an artist wanting to share this experience and this sort of expression with as many people as possible, and two, comic book readers often they really do get abused by these publishers because it's not a super profitable business, and I'm very concerned with the integrity of proving myself, both as somebody creatively who's creating a piece of art, but also as somebody who's developing a product. And so at my own expense, I have made the product as cheap as I absolutely possibly can, or inexpensive, I should say, because the print quality is better than what you're getting at Marvel or DC right now by a long shot.
Yes, I can attest to that. Amazing art standards, but just even the texture of the pages, to the quality of the drawing, the continuity. Like, I feel like some of these commercial comics I've got, there's like, it's like they find these little ways of throwing advertisements in, and sometimes I don't feel like there's any wasted space in your comics.
It's definitely been a huge goal of mine, and just delivering as much value as I possibly can, without compromising the integrity of the story itself. So, it's a blessing and a curse, because at this stage in the game, we need more people to hop on if this is to become sustainable at this quality, at this speed. This is the fourth one we put out in about a year. Um, and so it's a lot. And so I'm hoping, anybody that's out there that's listening that might like comics, might not have given comics a chance yet. Consider giving it a look, because it's because of support like Patrick's and like the aforementioned Mark McKeever, that I've been able to at least keep it at this quality. And I'd like to continue doing so. But yeah, it's super accessible. If you just want the high quality digital PDFs, $15 for all four. If you want to get in on the physical level, I think if you wanted all four issues, plus shipping, everything included, it's going to cost you about 25, which is pretty negligible.
Yeah.
If you are a comic book person, you'll know how important it is, and how I guess beneficial it is when I say that it's 24 pages of complete story, no ads. The stock, like I said, is 2 times thicker than what you're getting at Marvel or DC. So I think at bare minimum, whether or not you're in love with the idea of the story, I think I've at least delivered a physical product that's shelf stable and that's worth probably more than what you're paying for it in industry standards.
Well, and you've got some pretty amazing tiers the higher up you go, that come with some pretty amazing benefits. Like, I know art from some of your artists. You've got T-shirts and sweaters and hoodies and you also got the stickers, and you got all kinds of cool stuff. So talk to us about some of that.
So there are I've tried to make these Kickstarter pre-orders as inclusive as possible in terms of bringing the people in that support me from the very beginning, from the ground up, and just kind of allowing them in on aspects of the creation process, and to be able to get things that I won't be able to offer. If this does become a career in the future, there are certain things that I will never be able to offer again, just based on time and scheduling and such. And now, because I am able to do it, I do want to bring that readership in. So you can become a credited producer of the series, which is what Patrick was gracious enough to do, and what Mark McKeever has done several times.
Oh, yeah.
I design custom merchandise for every single campaign that doesn't get reproduced, which is really cool. And I spent a lot of time managing in retail throughout college, so I've brought an intimate knowledge of material science and of design into creating these things. So, because I think there's always this unfortunate quality to like buying something, a piece of paraphernalia or a piece of merchandise that like represents something you love, but it's not like the most wearable thing, whether
Mm.
it's like uncomfortable or just not well designed. And I've definitely tried to leap over that and deliver something that's super comfortable. They're all printed on soft Bella canvas shirt material. And I'd like to think that they're pretty well designed. There are, like Patrick had said, opportunities to get commissions from both my interior artist and my variant cover artist, which the latter has never been offered before and is super limited. There's even, if you are crazy big baller stacks and you really believe in me and what I do and you want to have a very personal experience, there's even a tier where I will fly out to wherever you are in the United States and hand deliver your stuff to you sign at your local comic book store, take you out to dinner, let you ask me whatever you want. If you're over the age of 21, I'll buy you a drink. And that comes with a plethora of physical rewards, like, being credited as an executive producer, multiple pieces of merchandise, copies of every single issue in the series autographed, art prints, like hard, stiff, metallic art prints as well. I mean, a bunch of stuff. But, I would say the most popular for folks coming in is getting like the artist print tier, which includes copies of the book, and a really premium, well printed artist print featuring art that is voted on by the backers. I try to include my supporters in the choices as to what's going into their packages as much as humanly possible. And we're actually, I think, our first stretch goal, if we are to exceed our base funding goal and go beyond that at $8,000, I'll be upgrading all of the artist prints to this cool, like, metallic foil texture, which it looks beautiful, man. I have a stack of them literally sitting like 5 feet away from me right now, and they are stunning.
I bet. So I might be wrong, but I was listening to a live on YouTube, watching a live on YouTube where you had a couple people very knowledgeable, unlike me, very knowledgeable about comics. They were talking to you about some of the perks. And aren't you very limited on how many issue number ones you've got left?
Yeah, so the first print of issue number 1, I'm getting really close to selling out, which is both anxiety inducing and exciting. So we're getting to the point where I'll probably be running some type of other campaign to reprint issue 1 with a brand new cover, just so that those that got in on the ground floor will have something very unique and individual, because of their support of me so early on. But also, I know collectors like the opportunity to have access to different art. And I never wanted to oversaturate that during main campaigns. That's why I usually only offer 2 different covers. Yeah, so we'll be reprinting it probably in the next couple of months, offering and when I do reprint it, it'll probably include a little bit of extra back matter in the book as well, which is really cool. But yes, if you are a collector and you want that first print edition and you want that those 2 original covers, this is probably going to be the last opportunity that those are available.
So I had a lot of anxiety when I got these comics, because I was brand new to hey, I just bought my first comics, and they arrived very well packaged, and of course I've got this cool autograph from Trevor on here, and I'm looking at them, and I was so scared to open them. I didn't want to open them. I was like, well, I think I'm gonna have to buy some extra ones so I don't open these, because what does that do to the value of the comic? And not to say that people should open or shouldn't open. I don't know, because I'm new to the world. But Mark gave me some wonderful advice. He said, Patrick, the value of the comic lies inside the pages. He said, open them up and read them. And so I did, and which is what we already talked about. When I did, I was like, okay, Trevor, where's number 3? Come on, let's do this. So after number 4, how many total issues are we going to have?
This is shaping up to be 6. I really wanted my first comic book series to be something tight and contained, and to prove to myself and my new audience of readers that I could finish a story and wrap it up well. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to get that under my belt. And I based on the outlining and how much more intimately I've come to know the story and these characters over time, I think that this story really does end at issue 6. I've given myself a margin of space where I think if I ever wanted to come back to this world and do something perhaps with 1 or 2 of these characters, I might be able to again. But I want that decision to be because I have the right idea for it, not because of any potential sales success or because anybody else is asking for it. I have to do right by the story and do right by these characters. And I think by doing that, I'm doing right by the readership, because I at that rate, I won't be stretching a story further beyond where it should be, right? Like we've seen that happen to a lot of beloved television shows and movie franchises and even novel series, that we've all come to know and love. And I wanted to give this story its natural end. And beyond that, I plan on doing a large anthology book.
Okay.
Or a relatively large anthology book that's going to collect somewhere. I think it'll really depend on how successful the Kickstarter is for it, but probably be anywhere from like 6 to 10 short stories. Each story I'll be working with a different artist telling a very different genre story. There's I haven't talked a lot about it publicly, but there's a dystopian sci-fi future story in there. There's a supernatural murder mystery in there. There is a Western. There's a story about immortal warlords in there. There's a story about futuristic businessmen. There's a lot. There's a lot of different content. And for me, I think it's really exciting creatively to be able to work in a couple of different spaces after being sort of chained to this one concept for as long as it's been, and just break outside the box and even sort of professionally kind of flex my muscles as a writer and storyteller, and just have the opportunity to open up my playpen. You know what I mean?
Well, and that was you went right into my next question, was what's next. So there's definitely more to come. We get to the end of 6. Like Mark had sent me like a Darth Vader that combined like 12 comics into one. Once they got through with the series, will you be doing like an omnibus where they're all collected into like one graphic novel?
I would love to do a graphic novel, but because we're so independent and sort of boots to the ground in terms of production, that totally depends on the success of these books. If the demand is there and people want it and people are supporting the series through through until that point, yeah, I would love to.
Well, call to action on that, folks. Again, link in the description. Go check it out. Give it a shot. That's all Mark said to me. Just give it a chance. Worst case scenario, you've supported an amazing creator, and it doesn't cost a whole lot out of your pocket for a great quality product, whether you like the story or not. And I think you're going to like the story. And I'd like to tell you one of the things I appreciate, because even though I haven't been a comic guy my whole life, I've been a book guy. I've been reading since I was 3. But I love reading, and what you'll find is storytelling devices, what we would call tropes throughout all stories. And I've become very much of a book snob. It's like I can kind of predict where the story's going just because of the storytelling device. And for a writer to really pull me in, they have to have a masterful use of those storytelling devices that isn't trite and isn't just like almost a slap in the face to the reader. That second issue, I don't want to spoil any of the story, but that second issue, I was on pins and needles. I'm like, what's Trevor going to do here? Is he going to fall back on some old it works tropes and take the lazy way out, or is he going to pull us in a different way? And you pulled me in.
3 probably has the craziest. I mean, 3 has probably the craziest last page of the series so far. And 3 might have the craziest ending, second only to the literal last page of the series. But I don't want to spoil that.
Yeah, don't spoil. Yeah, if y'all want to know the story, go check it out. Support the Kickstarter, because it's a good story.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. I partly because I spent my early days on in this sort of comic book space doing that analytical review content. I really wanted to show up and I mean, I think that in comics journalism and such, there are a lot of people that have make a lot of tough talk and any criticism really, and they're not able to deliver, and they're not able to pay off those criticisms in their own regard. And that's something that I definitely wanted to be able to do coming into this book, and just kind of prove that, to myself at least, that my criticisms were actually founded in my ability to recognize what went wrong and decide and decode a way of doing it better myself. That might be a little bit arrogant. I don't know what. But certainly, I'm really, really glad to hear that. And I've definitely tried to make the series unpredictable, but not out of shock value, unpredictable in a way that, like, maybe in retrospect, because everything is 2020, you might be able to go back and go, you know what? We kind of poked at this here, and I just didn't see it then, because it was so sort of subtle and hidden behind the subtext of the story, which is great, and this has been such a rewarding experience, getting to talk to folks like you and other readers. I actually, I had this really kind reader that reached out via email today. He's like, hey, I couldn't find anywhere where I could like leave a review, and he sent me like just this really wonderful message about how much he enjoyed the story, and particularly because I began all of this, kind of buried in my house like everybody else during the pandemic. These are like the most rewarding parts of being a storyteller is knowing that I've shared this story and that it's resonated with people.
This story has come from inside of you. It's a piece of you. And, we get to share that with you and you with us. And that's what I love about the stories. It's I'll never get to meet some of my favorite authors. One of my favorite authors was Anne Rice. She recently passed away. Never got to meet her, but I got to read her books. And I may not know everything about her, but I've got a piece of her, and I always get to hold on to that piece. And so this is what's been amazing to me. It's like, Mark, aforementioned Mark McKeever. He's just a beautiful soul that sees the best in people. It's like, if you want to have a good day, if you've been having a bad day, try to see yourself through Mark's eyes. He will both simultaneously humble you and build you up. But when he came at me and said to give it a try, it wasn't just because of the product. It was like he came at me to say, Patrick, give this guy Trevor a try. Give him a try. And that's what you're doing with these comics, is you're trying you out. And you didn't disappoint. You really didn't.
Well, I appreciate that. It's honestly great to hear. And like I said, man, there are parts of me in each one of these characters that are in this cast. For me, it was kind of using them to work out kind of pieces of myself, and in some ways brought to different extremes and extrapolating, all of the potentials as to where I could go if I overindulged myself in certain feelings or in certain instincts. And the storytelling, I think, for a lot of us is very therapeutic. Whether we get an answer or not, we're able to kind of work through these parts of ourselves that we haven't quite deciphered without it, because you can then create something and step back and look at it and go, oh, I've been approaching this wrong the whole time in your personal life. And that's kind of part of what this is. And I think that it's like that for any story that I've ever enjoyed.
So anybody who's a sci-fi fantasy film or a fantasy fan that is looking for the quality story and not just the setting, check out the Helix project. Just do it. And if you're not a sci-fi fan but you like good storytelling, check out the Helix project. I mean, there's something there for everybody. And I think you've made it accessible to everybody. And, what I want to wrap up with is, I want to see it go all 6. That's the only thing that'll disappoint me. If I don't get a finish to this story, I'm gonna strangle somebody. I've got to have a finish to this story. I'm chomping at the bit for number 4, and even then, it's like I can't imagine your nerves of, can we get all 6 done? I'm nervous about can we get all 6 done? And I'm saying we, like somehow I'm involved in this, and I'm not. I'm a consumer. I need number 6. So y'all go check it out and help support this thing. Character driven, story driven. It happens to be set in the sci-fi world. That's what'll speak to me. So as we wrap this up, folks, please go to Kickstarter. It's in the link. Check out Trevor's work, because it's rare. I've got goosebumps. It's rare that I find a storyteller that just seems to get it. And I can't thank you enough for giving me your time tonight, Trevor. This has been a treat for me.
I appreciate the kind words, and I couldn't be more happy that the things that I've had to say about stories, and that the story itself is connected with you. At the end of the day, that's the goal. Above selling comics, above all else, it's about connectivity, and it's about reminding people that we all share a commonality despite the differences that do make us beautiful. There's a shared struggle, and there's a shared embrace of this life that we all live. And that's what stories are about to me. And, fortunately, I've been given the opportunity to explore that through this comic, and hopefully through more in the future. And, I guess all I can really ask is that folks come and share that with me and with you and with, the couple hundred other readers that are checking out this series. Because I think that it explicitly or not, mostly not, I think it binds us,
So folks, there you have it. Man, that's Trevor, the creator. I mean, I'm humbled. I mean, the actual creator of a product like this, taking time to talk to me. So guys, thank you for tuning in. If you really want to show appreciation to me, and not even to me, to Trevor, please check out the Kickstarter. I've already said it 1,000 times. The link's in the description. I mean, if even just 10 of you said, hey, I want to pick up issue 1 through 4. That's probably going to push us over where we need to go. I'm going to go out and bump up my pledge. But Trevor, thank you again for your time. Thank you for sharing your passion and your love, brother.
Grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have supporters like you, Patrick, and I'm grateful to anybody that's made it this far and let me ramble about things that don't exist for this long. It's this is the beginning to a potential dream job, and these are the moments that count the most. So I'm grateful, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, y'all stay nerdy with it. Trevor, we're going to see more of you, brother. Take care. Really quick, I'm going to do a giveaway of my own. For the first 2 of my viewers that actually go out and support Trevor's Kickstarter, and they give him a message that Patrick sent you, I've got 2 giveaways I'm going to do. I went out and picked these up for 2 of y'all. One is going to be a Marvel wall clock. The other is going to be the Star Wars wall clock. I went and picked these up specifically just to support Trevor on his Kickstarter. So for 2 of y'all, the first 2 to go out there and support him, I don't care how much you give, just support him. Make sure you drop a message to him, say Patrick sent you, and get a hold of me. Trevor will get a hold of me, and I'll make sure we get these out to you. Please, U.S. shipping only. I can't ship those internationally.